Welcome to the future.
Welcome to 1337, the future of podcast of longevity. I'm Max, your host, exploring the science of living longer.
And I'm Sophia, diving into health hacks and ageless living tips. We're here to uncover the secrets to a vibrant, extended life.
You know, today we're diving deep into something that impacts well over half the population.
Absolutely.
But it's often misunderstood. The fundamental physiological differences between men and women.
Yeah.
And how these differences affect our exercise, nutrition, sleep, and overall well-being and longevity.
Really everything.
Yeah, you shared some really fascinating material with us, including this deep dive conversation with Dr. Stacy Sims.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, an exercise physiologist and nutrition scientist.
And, you know, our mission today is to unpack these sex-based distinctions, to move beyond generalized health advice, and give you actionable insights tailored to female physiology. So get ready for some potential ha moments as we explore why one-size-fits-all often leaves women at a disadvantage in the pursuit of health and fitness.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is so interesting that Dr. Sims points out is how much research in sports science has really focused on men.
Right.
And it's not just a slight imbalance. It really sounds like the foundational understanding in many areas is largely based on male bodies.
Yeah, that's a crucial point. When we look at the studies that have shaped our understanding of training, nutrition, and recovery, the vast majority have included primarily, if not exclusively, male participants.
Right.
And the assumption has been that women are simply smaller versions responding in the same way.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a matter of convenience. Dr. Sims pointed out some specific reasons why this male-centric bias developed, including the way studies were advertised.
Yeah, the recruitment language for many of these sports science studies often used very, competitive, almost aggressive terms that likely appealed more to men.
Right.
Than to women. And additionally, the research protocols themselves sometimes presented practical barriers for women.
Okay.
With demanding time commitments for things like biopsies and blood draws.
Wow, yeah. And then she shared this anecdote from her own university research where her data in a carbohydrate metabolism study was thrown out.
Just tossed out.
Because it didn't align with the male results, and the reason given was her menstrual cycle made her too difficult to study.
That's fascinating and deeply problematic at the same time.
It is.
The implication that a fundamental aspect of female biology is seen as a hindrance rather than a key variable to understand.
Wow.
This dismissal highlights the historical reluctance to incorporate female physiology into scientific inquiry.
Right.
And that's led to this skewed understanding that we have.
So we have this historical bias that leads to this gap in knowledge about how women's bodies respond to exercise and nutrition.
Absolutely. And these biological differences aren't limited to just hormonal cycles.
Right.
They begin much earlier in development. Dr. Sims mentioned that even in utero male fetuses show a greater susceptibility to miscarriage when the mother experiences stress compared to female fetuses.
Yeah, and these inherent biological distinctions become more apparent as we develop.
Yeah.
Take muscle structure, for example.
Okay.
Men tend to be born with a higher proportion of fast-twitch muscle fibers, which are geared for power and quick bursts of energy, while women naturally have more slow-twitch fibers, better suited for endurance and sustained effort.
If we think about what kind of activities we might naturally gravitate towards or excel in, it starts to make sense.
It does.
Men might find it easier to build explosive power.
Yeah.
While women might have a natural advantage in those longer duration, steady state activities.
And then puberty hits, bringing about significant changes in the female body that go way beyond reproductive capabilities. Dr. Sims highlighted how a girl's center of gravity shifts lower and her hips and shoulders widen.
That widening of the hips is particularly significant.
Yeah.
Because it changes the angle of the thigh bone relative to the shin bone at the knee.
Right.
What's known as the Q angle.
Q angle.
For young women, this anatomical shift can make activities like running and jumping feel less natural or even uncomfortable. And this is if they don't understand why their bodies are changing.
And it's, kind of sad in a way to learn that this lack of understanding and guidance contributes to over 60% of girls dropping out of sports by the age of 14.
Yeah, think about all that lost potential.
Yeah.
And the lifelong benefits they're missing out on. It raises the question, how can we better educate young women and their coaches about these physiological changes so they can continue to participate in and enjoy physical activity?
Yeah, tailored guidance, I think, is key here.
Absolutely.
So beyond these structural shifts, There are differences in body composition.
Yeah.
Women naturally carry a higher percentage of essential fat, around 12% compared to 4 to 8% in men, which plays vital roles in nerve function.
Right.
And protecting our organs. Typical healthy body fat range is also different, with women generally around 20% and men around 15%.
It's important to emphasize that these are healthy ranges, reflecting different biological needs. They're not necessarily indicators of overall fitness. There are also cardiovascular distinctions. Dr. Sims pointed out that women tend to have smaller hearts and lungs relative to their body size and lower levels of hemoglobin.
Okay.
Which means a reduced capacity to carry oxygen in the blood.
Huh.
This is partly due to lower levels of aromatized testosterone.
So if someone's listening to this and they're like, why do I feel more breathless sooner than, my male counterpart?
Exactly.
This is probably why.
This might explain why.
Interesting.
It impacts power and speed more than sustained endurance.
And when we look at strength, the data Dr. Sims shared is quite telling.
Yeah.
On average, women have about 52% of the upper body strength and 66% of the lower body strength of men.
Right.
However, with targeted training, especially in the legs, women can achieve 70-80% of men's strength.
This underscores two important points: the significant potential for women to build strength.
Yeah.
And the critical role resistance training plays in overall female health and well-being.
And let's go back to that Q angle for a moment.
Yeah.
Because this seems like a really crucial factor, particularly when we talk about ACL injuries. You mentioned imagining two lines, one from the hip to the kneecap.
Right.
Another from the kneecap to the ankle.
Uh-huh.
And the angle where they meet is the Q angle.
That's it.
Because women tend to have wider hips, this angle is generally larger in women compared to men.
Generally, yeah.
This larger angle means that the force upon landing from a jump or during quick changes in direction isn't distributed as evenly across the knee joint.
Exactly.
And then it's compounded by the fact that women tend to rely more heavily on their quadriceps muscles on the front of their thighs compared to their hamstrings and glutes on the back. That quad dominance Dr. Sims mentioned, this imbalance further destabilizes the knee.
So you have this combination of a wider Q angle and a tendency towards quad dominance, which unfortunately predisposes women to a significantly higher risk of ACL injuries. Dr. Sims cited a 3 to 4 times greater risk compared to men, especially in recreational sports.
Right.
Where specific preventative training isn't typically a focus.
And it's encouraging to know that this isn't as prevalent in professional sports, because they're increasingly incorporating these warm-up programs, like the FIFA protocols, that target these muscle imbalances and landing mechanics.
Exactly. Prevention focuses on strengthening the muscles on the back of the legs, the hamstrings and glutes, improving the balance of strength between the hamstrings and quads, and practicing explosive lateral movements.
Okay.
As well as single leg stability. These are key for reducing ACL risk.
Now let's shift gears and talk about nutrition. Dr. Sims had some really interesting insights into how women's bodies process fuel differently. And it seems a lot of it comes down to the hypothalamus in the brain.
The hypothalamus plays a central role in regulating both our appetite and our entire endocrine system. What's fascinating is that the hypothalamus in women tends to be more sensitive to the density of nutrients we consume compared to men.
In practical terms, what does that mean for us?
So Dr. Sims mentioned differences in baseline calorie needs.
Okay.
Men need around 15 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass.
Okay.
While women need closer to 30
to
maintain hormonal balance and healthy appetite regulation.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is. And this difference has significant implications for things like fasted training.
Okay.
Men often find fasted workouts beneficial, partly because their hypothalamus isn't as sensitive to the immediate lack of fuel.
Right.
However, for women, this can actually be counterproductive, potentially leading to the body breaking down lean muscle tissue for energy because the hypothalamus perceives a lack of sufficient nutrients.
So that black coffee and straight to the gym routine might actually be working against their fitness goals.
In some cases, it could be, yeah.
So Dr. Sims suggested that even a small amount of protein, around 15 grams, or a combination of protein and carbohydrates before a workout can make a big difference.
Exactly. This small pre-exercise fuel can signal to the hypothalamus that energy is available.
Right.
Helping to prevent that excessive breakdown of lean muscle.
It's about providing just enough to reassure your body that it's not in a state of starvation.
Exactly.
And there's an evolutionary reason for this, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Sims talked about how in times of scarcity, women's bodies would prioritize conserving energy for potential reproduction, while men's bodies would gear up for activities like hunting, requiring a leaner physique.
That's the evolutionary perspective.
Okay.
Women's bodies are inherently wired to prioritize survival and reproductive capacity during periods of low food availability, which likely contributes to this more sensitive hypothalamic response to nutrient intake.
And this also sheds light on the discussion around fasting. Dr. Sims pointed out how intermittent or warrior-style fasting, which can offer benefits for some men, like improved focus and fat loss,
Right.
can often have the opposite effect in women.
Yeah, what we see is that women might experience poorer blood sugar control, increased fat storage, more of a fight-or-flight stress response, and even potential issues with their thyroid function when engaging in prolonged fasting protocols like the warrior diet.
But overnight fasting, she said, was okay.
Aligning with our natural circadian rhythms can still be beneficial for women.
So it seems like the key difference is the duration and the intensity of the fasting period.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to extended fasting for autophagy, that cellular cleanup process,
Yeah.
Dr. Sims highlighted that exercise is actually a more potent trigger for autophagy
Yeah.
than prolonged food restriction.
That's great news.
It is good news. Now, when it comes to training specifically for weight loss, are there sex-specific recommendations we should be aware of?
Resistance training is really a cornerstone for women of all ages who are looking to reduce abdominal fat and build lean muscle mass.
Okay.
This helps to boost metabolism and improve overall body composition.
And the importance of adequate protein intake. Alongside the resistance training can't be emphasized enough.
Yeah, a higher protein intake provides the building blocks for muscle repair and growth,
Right.
especially when combined with consistent resistance exercise.
Dr. Sims also briefly mentioned Ozempic and similar GLP-1 agonists, which are effective for weight loss.
Right.
But she cautioned about the potential downside, the loss of lean muscle mass.
If someone's using these medications, it becomes even more critical to incorporate regular strength training and ensure adequate protein intake to preserve muscle mass and avoid a decline in overall physical function, what she called the Wall-E scenario.
Now let's talk about what to eat after exercise. It sounds like there are some key differences in how quickly men and women recover metabolically.
What's interesting is that women's metabolism tends to return to its resting rate more quickly after exercise, typically within 30 to 40 minutes, compared to men whose metabolic recovery can take anywhere from 2 to 18 hours depending on the workout.
So this faster metabolic recovery in women means that we should aim to consume protein after a workout sooner. Dr. Sims suggested that around 35 grams of protein within about 45 minutes post-resistance training is ideal for women in their reproductive years to maximize muscle protein synthesis. For men, the recommendation is closer to 20 grams, and the window for consumption is a bit more flexible.
And when it comes to replenishing those carbohydrate stores in the muscles, what we call glycogen replenishment, women generally don't require as much carbohydrate intake after exercise as men do.
What about the ketogenic diet? It's gained a lot of popularity, but Dr. Sims seemed to have some reservations for both men and women.
She expressed a general caution towards the keto diet for both sexes, primarily due to its potential to negatively impact the diversity of the gut microbiome. A healthy and diverse gut microbiome is essential for a wide range of functions, including vitamin synthesis, serotonin production, and that crucial gut-brain connection.
And for women specifically, given their natural tendency towards being more metabolically flexible,
Yeah?
due to a higher proportion of those endurance-type muscle fibers,
Right.
there isn't typically a significant physiological advantage to following a ketogenic diet.
Right.
Plus, as Dr. Sims pointed out, fiber intake, which is vital for a healthy gut, is often insufficient on a keto diet.
That's a key consideration. And given that the gut microbiome also plays a role in the metabolism of sex hormones in women, maintaining a healthy and diverse gut is even more important.
Now let's touch on some popular biohacks like cold plunges and saunas.
Okay.
Are there any sex-based differences in how we should approach these to maximize their benefits?
Absolutely. When it comes to cold plunges, Dr. Sims noted that women generally require slightly warmer water temperatures around 15-16 degrees Celsius or 59-61 degrees Fahrenheit to achieve the same parasympathetic nervous system activation and cognitive benefits that men often experience in much colder water, closer to 0 to 4 degrees Celsius or 32-39 degrees Fahrenheit. This difference is likely due to variations in skin sensation and thermoregulation, with women often having more subcutaneous fat and an initial vasoconstriction response to cold.
So I guess for all the women out there who've been jumping in that ice water and not getting those effects,
Exactly.
this is why. What about saunas?
With saunas, women tend to take a bit longer to heat up internally and start sweating because of an initial vasodilation.
Okay.
This often means that women can tolerate slightly longer sauna sessions than men to achieve similar cardiovascular adaptations.
So it sounds like women might need to adjust the temperature for cold plunges and the duration for saunas.
Yes.
To optimize their benefits compared to what's generally recommended. Now let's talk about a supplement that sometimes carries some misconceptions, particularly for women. Creatine.
There's a common misconception that creatine will cause women to bulk up and develop a more masculine physique. Dr. Sims debunked this, explaining that the typical recommended dose for general health and performance in women is quite low, around 3 to 5 grams taken once daily.
Okay.
And there's no need for a loading phase.
And the benefits extend beyond just muscle.
Absolutely.
She mentioned that creatine can support gut health.
Yes.
By helping to maintain the integrity of the mucosal lining.
Exactly.
Potentially reducing gastrointestinal distress, which can be more common in women.
Creatine also has benefits for brain health. Research has linked it to improved mood and potentially faster recovery from depressive episodes. The higher dose loading phases are really only relevant for individuals with very specific and aggressive muscle performance goals.
Okay.
Women will effectively saturate their creatine stores over a period of about 3 weeks with that lower daily dose.
What about other key supplements that women might want to consider?
Vitamin D3 is crucial for a wide range of functions, including overall health, muscle recovery, muscle function, and brain health, particularly given that many people have limited sun exposure and dietary sources are relatively scarce.
Omega-3 fatty acids are also important because of their anti-inflammatory properties and their role in maintaining cellular integrity, particularly as estrogen levels naturally decline during perimenopause and postmenopause. Blood tests can be helpful in determining individual needs.
And finally, iron. Low iron is quite prevalent in women and is essential for the transport of oxygen throughout the body. Symptoms can include persistent fatigue and dark circles under the eyes. Dr. Sims recommended considering supplementation every other day with a highly bioavailable form, such as carbonyl iron or iron glycinate. She also noted that it's worth being mindful of hepcidin levels after intense training, as they can temporarily reduce iron absorption.
Let's touch on something that many couples experience, sharing meals.
Okay.
Dr. Sims pointed out that insulin sensitivity in women can fluctuate throughout their menstrual cycle.
That's right. Insulin sensitivity tends to decrease, meaning we can become a bit more insulin resistant in the later phase of the cycle.
Okay.
After ovulation, due to the influence of progesterone in making glucose available for the uterine lining.
And this can also be affected during perimenopause, where the shifting hormone levels can also lead to increased insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Dr. Sims also noted that anovulatory cycles where ovulation doesn't occur are becoming more common.
Right.
Due to factors like stress and diet, further disrupting these typical hormonal patterns.
The key takeaway here is that women's bodies might process the same meal differently depending on where they are in their hormonal cycle.
Right.
So paying attention to individual responses is more valuable than assuming everyone will react the same way.
This leads us to the idea of adapting our exercise and nutrition strategies throughout the menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
It sounds like there are certain phases where women might naturally have more or less energy or have different fuel requirements?
Absolutely. In the early phase in the cycle, the follicular phase, roughly from the first day of your period until ovulation. Around days 113, the immune system tends to be quite robust. Resilience to stress is generally good, and women can typically handle higher intakes of both carbohydrates and protein. They also tend to be more sensitive to insulin during this time, making it a good phase for pushing training intensity and potentially achieving personal bests.
And what about the later phase after ovulation, the luteal phase?
During this phase, progesterone levels rise, which tends to conserve glucose, potentially leading to increased cravings for protein. If you're engaging in high-intensity workouts, it becomes even more important to ensure you're consuming enough carbohydrates both before and after. Protein needs might also increase slightly, perhaps by around 12%. It's also worth noting that core body temperature can be a bit higher during this phase, potentially reducing tolerance for very hot environments.
So it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach, even within a woman's own monthly cycle. Dr. Sims really emphasized the importance of individualization and using something called the sessional rating of perceived exertion, or RPE, to gauge how you're feeling on any given day.
Yeah, tracking your RPE, both physically and mentally, can be a really valuable tool for adjusting your training intensity based on your body's cues. Over time, you'll start to see patterns emerge, allowing you to strategically schedule lower intensity or recovery days for times when your energy levels are typically lower, like in the late luteal phase.
It's almost like periodizing your training. not just across weeks or months, but also in sync with the different phases of your menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
And it sounds like peak strength and cognitive function often align with that rising estrogen in the mid-follicular phase.
That's right. Theoretically, your lowest strength levels might occur around that late luteal phase when hormone levels are declining and there might be a bit more inflammation.
So understanding your own menstrual cycle seems absolutely fundamental to all of this.
Yes.
Dr. Sims mentioned that what we consider a normal cycle can actually have quite a wide range.
Yeah, a typical cycle length can vary from 21 to 40 days, not just the textbook 28 days. And the duration and pattern of your menstrual bleeding can also differ significantly from person to person. Tracking your own individual normal is key for identifying any deviations that might signal stress, low energy availability, or the onset of perimenopause.
And missed periods aren't always just a sign of pregnancy, as we often assume.
Right.
They can frequently be an indicator that the body is under some form of stress,
Yeah.
including overtraining or inadequate fueling, which leads back to that low energy availability and hypothalamic disruption we discussed earlier.
The menstrual cycle really acts as a vital sign reflecting a woman's overall health and energy balance.
And let's touch on bone health really quickly. Dr. Sims highlighted the important connection between bone density
Yeah.
and the menstrual cycle in women.
Bone density in women is significantly influenced by both estrogen and progesterone. Peak bone mass is typically achieved around age 20. Engaging in activities that put multidirectional stress on the bones, like jumping and resistance training, is crucial for maintaining bone density throughout life. Lower estrogen levels, whether due to conditions like amenorrhea or the use of oral contraceptives, can negatively impact bone health.
And men tend to have a bit of a natural advantage here with generally thicker bones.
Yeah.
And less age-related bone degradation, likely due to their more stable hormonal profiles.
Right. The hormonal fluctuations in women's cycles create a more dynamic environment for bone remodeling.
Sleep is another crucial factor for our overall well-being, and it appears the menstrual cycle can also influence sleep patterns in women.
Yes, women often experience shifts in their sleep phases throughout their cycle, with more frequent sleep interruptions often occurring closer to the start of their period. This can be linked to hormonal fluctuations affecting core body temperature and the production of melatonin, our sleep hormone. Men, on the other hand, tend to have a later peak in melatonin production,
Right.
which influences their natural sleep work preferences.
And it sounds like women might be slightly more susceptible to the effects of jet lag
Yeah.
due to having a slightly shorter natural circadian rhythm.
A slightly shorter internal clock in women might make eastward travel a bit easier,
Okay.
and westward travel a bit more challenging compared to men.
Dr. Sims also talked about chronobiology. For anyone who isn't familiar, it's essentially the study of our body's internal clocks and their relationship to biological rhythms, like the 24-hour circadian rhythm.
Understanding this is important because our hormones, things like cortisol, luteinizing hormone, and estrogen, have their own rhythmic patterns throughout the day, influencing various bodily functions.
Okay.
Maintaining consistent meal timing can really help support a healthy alignment of these circadian rhythms and optimize repair processes during sleep.
Eating late in the evening, she cautioned, can disrupt sleep quality because the body is prioritizing digestion over those crucial restorative sleep processes. This can then have a knock-on effect on our appetite-regulating hormones, potentially increasing cravings and hindering our body composition goals.
That's right. A consistent eating schedule helps to regulate these hormonal rhythms and supports overall metabolic health.
And for that early morning hunger, you wake up unusually early.
Right.
Dr. Sims suggested that can sometimes be a stress response, signaling the brain's need for fuel.
Uh-huh.
And, I've always wondered this. Is it okay to eat like a light snack before recording a podcast?
Yeah.
I've always wondered if that would affect my articulation.
It shouldn't.
Okay.
A small snack like a protein shake or a couple of hard-boiled eggs is unlikely to have a negative impact.
Now let's talk about perimenopause, that significant transition period leading up to menopause.
It's a phase that typically begins around age 35 and can last until menopause, which has an average onset around age 52.
Okay.
The hallmark of this period is significant fluctuations in the levels and ratios of estrogen and progesterone.
And these hormonal shifts can manifest in a wide range of symptoms, including plateaus in training progress, unexplained weight gain, disrupted sleep, and changes in mood.
Exactly. In the past, these symptoms were often dismissed as simply being due to stress.
Yeah.
But thankfully, there's increasing awareness that these are real physiological changes driven by hormones, almost like a reverse puberty.
Interesting.
Diagnosis is primarily based on a woman's reported symptoms, as blood tests for perimenopause aren't always conclusive due to the daily variability of hormone levels.
Okay.
Dr. Sims also pointed out some important physiological changes that can occur during perimenopause, such as an increased risk of elevated LDL cholesterol and blood glucose levels. Even in the absence of significant lifestyle changes, we can also see shifts in the gut microbiome, potentially leading to decreased diversity due to lower sex hormone levels, which can impact serotonin production and metabolism. Additionally, the liver's processing of fat can change, potentially leading to an increase in visceral fat storage around the organs.
So it sounds like body composition and genetics can play a role in how severely a woman experiences these symptoms.
With more body fat sometimes being linked to more frequent hot flashes.
Okay, so how should women be thinking about their exercise and nutrition strategies during perimenopause?
Exercise becomes an even more vital tool during perimenopause, acting as an external stressor that can help compensate for the declining hormonal influence on things like muscle protein synthesis, bone density, and insulin sensitivity.
Okay.
Dr. Sims recommended prioritizing high-intensity interval training, plyometrics, and power-based resistance training, focusing on quality over high volume.
The goal here is to help improve blood glucose control, support mitochondrial function, and stimulate the release of beneficial myokines that can help prevent the accumulation of visceral fat.
And ensuring a higher protein intake distributed evenly throughout the day becomes essential to help overcome what's known as anabolic resistance, where the body becomes less responsive to protein for muscle building. Focusing on a diet rich in colorful whole foods is also crucial for supporting gut microbiome diversity and managing blood glucose levels.
Okay.
Dr. Sims also touched on menopausal hormone therapy, or MHT, noting that she prefers that term over hormone replacement therapy, or HRT.
Okay.
Therapy better reflects the goal, which is to alleviate severe symptoms and improve quality of life rather than attempting to restore youthful hormone levels.
Right.
Dosages used in MHT are typically low and considered physiological. It's important to understand that it's not an anti-aging agent and hasn't been proven to prevent dementia, but it can be a valuable tool for managing disruptive perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms when lifestyle interventions alone aren't sufficient.
And the encouraging news is that for women who establish consistent healthy lifestyle habits during perimenopause, the postmenopausal phase can often be a relatively stable new normal without the significant hormonal fluctuations that cause so much discomfort.
Exactly. It's about navigating that transition period as effectively as possible.
For women who are dealing with conditions like PCOS and endometriosis, are there any specific exercise or nutrition considerations that Dr. Sims highlighted?
For endometriosis, emerging research suggests potential links to bacterial or viral factors.
Okay.
Dr. Sims mentioned that cold water therapy around the time of ovulation might help to reduce inflammation and the growth of endometrial tissue outside the uterus. For PCOS, which is characterized by higher levels of androgens and insulin resistance.
Okay.
Exercise training should really focus on improving insulin sensitivity through activities like Haitian and resistance training. Because the menstrual cycle isn't always a reliable indicator of stress in women with PCOS, monitoring heart rate variability can be a helpful tool.
Dr. Sims made a really important point towards the end of the conversation. Emphasizing that understanding these sex-based differences in physiology ultimately benefits everyone.
Everyone, not just women.
Right.
It's absolutely crucial for advancing scientific research and developing more effective and personalized health guidance for all individuals. She also acknowledged the historical lack of education and open discussion surrounding female physiology.
And for anyone who wants to delve even deeper into this fascinating area,
Dr. Sims' books Next Level and R are fantastic resources. Next Level focuses specifically on menopause and the years beyond, while RAR provides a comprehensive overview of female physiology for both performance and overall health across the entire lifespan.
And finally, Dr. Sims shared a really powerful message, the same one she shares with her daughter, and wishes she could have told her younger self. Be empowered to ask questions and actively seek out knowledge.
That's a truly invaluable message for all of us.
What an incredibly insightful deep dive into the fascinating world of sex differences in physiology. We hope this has illuminated why your body might respond differently to exercise and nutrition than the often generalized advice out there.
This conversation barely scratched the surface, and Dr. Sims's books Next Level and R are fantastic resources for delving deeper. We encourage you to explore them.
Yeah.
Visit 1337podcast.com for more discussions on the cutting edge of longevity and health. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as enlightening as we did. See you next time.
Strength and honor. I am Spartacus.
Thanks for watching. Tap into 1337podcast.com.